Hello everyone, welcome to True Fan Forum. Now with Halloween just around the corner, I thought I'd give the videos I make between now and then a certain theme and talk about some of my favorite things in horror. Some of my favorite horror writers, movies, maybe a comic book, anything that I love that I feel is creepy and kooky, mysterious, maybe even spooky, and yes, even altogether ooky. And to start with, I thought I'd talk about one of my absolute favorite horror writers, and probably just one of my favorite writers in general, the great master of the macabre, Stephen King. I have to tell you, folks, I love his work. I mean, I have read so many of his books and short story collections and seen so many of the movie and TV adaptations of his works. If it has Stephen King on the cover, I'm drawn to it. Because, again, I just love his work. Now, first off, what I love about him is the fact that he is just an amazing storyteller. I mean, he can create these just compelling, thrilling stories where the tension just builds and builds and builds and keeps you on the edge of your seat. It just makes you want to read more and more and more until you just either collapse from exhaustion or you finish. Just, one or the other. Again, he just has this. Again, it's amazing what he can do. One thing I love about his work is how he can take some of the most mundane and perhaps even innocent of looking of objects and make them terrifying. He doesn't just write about monsters and haunted houses or psycho killers. He does that, but no, he can make anything terrifying. He has managed to make cars and typewriters and children and even one of those old wind-up toy monkeys that clang cymbals absolutely diabolical. And I love that because it gives such variety to his work. And it makes you go, wow, what is he going to come up with next? One thing I have to talk about is I love how he creates characters. Because to me, his characters just feel so real, so compelling. I mean, they have this wonderful mixtures of strengths and weaknesses and flaws that just make them feel real. They don't feel like stereotypes or archetypes. No, to me it feels like you're actually reading about real people who go through the most insane and terrifying of experiences. And again, some characters you love, some characters you hate, some characters you just love to hate, whatever, whether it's a good guy, a bad guy, somewhere in between. They're complex, and you just can't help but want to read more of them, either to see them survive or to see them get eaten. All right. So again, that's just one of the things he does. It just adds to what I feel are just these books you just cannot put down. It's the complexity of the characters and how he strives to make real people and put them in situations that just test the limits of a person's, courage, their sanity, their moral compass. I mean, with so many books, you wonder, what will this person do? Will, will they abandon their morals? Will they abandon things they used to hold dear just to survive? Or will they keep to them? Will they stick with what they believe in? I love his characters. Oh, and speaking of characters, one thing I've always admired about Stephen King is how he writes young people, kids and teenagers. Because he just has this amazing ability to just understand and grasp and display what it means to be young, what it means to be a child and to grow up and to just grapple with these just amazingly complex issues like death and love and despair and hope. Some of my favorite books of his involve young people. Christine, Carrie, It, all those books to me show his talent for writing young people. He gets young people. He understands. He remembers what it's like to be a child and have to deal with issues so far beyond their comprehension, or what it is to be a teenager and try to find their way and just try to figure out who am I going to be when I grow up. what kind of a person am I going to be? How am I going to live my life? And how do I deal with this? And oh, really, he writes young people just so amazingly well. Um, what else? What else? Oh yes. Now again, since I've read so many of his stories, there's a couple things I've noticed that he did a lot, especially in his earlier novels. I mainly I haven't read too many of his later novels, mostly because I just I read what I find. Whether I read I go to a library, I see some of his books, or I go to a used bookstore. I read what I can find. So I've read a lot of his older books. And one thing I noticed about his some things I noticed about his older books is for one thing how he likes to drop references or Easter eggs into his work. Basically what that means is he will reference some in one book something that happened in a completely different book. I've seen that in Tommyknockers, where he makes references to both it and Firestarter in the same book. In Cujo, I believe he made a reference to something that happened in the Dead Zone. And in some of the short stories, he's mentioned things that happened in Salem's Lot. Again, it's just these wonderful little things. I've always been curious about wondering why did he do it. Now, with the release of the movie The Dark Tower recently, there was a lot of talk of Stephen King's multiverse and how these stories all either exist or either all on the same world or they exist as sort of like the same multiverse and are connected. Sometimes connected by the Dark Tower itself. I wonder, was that always his idea even before he wrote the Dark Tower? Before he really thought of the series and the story? Or was it just simply he just thought of and thought, oh, that'd be interesting. Let me do this. Let me add these little references and add these things. So maybe my fans will catch it and go, hey, I recognize that. Oh my gosh, he's talking about that. Yeah, yeah. Again, what was the reason for it? Or was there a reason for it? Perhaps there was no reason. Maybe he just thought, hey, I'm going to do this. But again, I've noticed sometimes he makes references, and I love that because it really makes me pay attention even all the more. Because I already love the stories, but the idea of finding these little Easter eggs, these little gems, that as a huge fan, I can go, oh, I recognize that. Again, another thing I love, and another thing that just really grabs me to his stories is the idea, whether he meant to or not, of connectivity, of making all of his books something more. Now, another thing I noticed that he did a lot in um, his books was he introduced, I guess I guess for him the closest thing that comes to an archetype, and by that I mean he introduced the idea of this overbearing, domineering, highly protective mother figure. Now you have seen that in a few of his books. For example, it had this domineering, overprotective mother of one of the kids, Eddie, I believe. What's really sad is, after he grows up, he ends up marrying a woman exactly like his mother, which is so Freudian, so edible, and just so creepy. I mean, forget everything else. Forget the killer clown. That alone, the fact that he married someone who's just like his mother is really creepy. Another example of that mother type figure, and probably the best example would be Carrie. I mean, oh my god, Carrie's mother's just wow. You want to talk about overbearing and domineering? Whew! She wins the prize hands down. Another and interesting though, in The Shining, that sort of figure was in the book, but it was more of a reference than an actual character. I mean, that mother was talked about. There might have been a flashback or two, but she really wasn't involved in the main story. Again, she was just sort of referenced and talked about. In Tommyknockers, again, another sort of quick reference to that sort of overbearing mother type. But interestingly enough, in Tommyknockers, he kind of switched things up. And he changed the overbearing, domineering mother type to a sister. Because one of the characters in the book, her sister is that sort of controlling, domineering personality, not only to her sister, but to their parents as well. I mean, even as a child, that woman had her entire family under her thumb. Whatever she wanted it, she got it whenever she wanted it. So again, I don't want to go into why he wrote that particular character. I'm not a psychologist. I really don't want to get into it, but that idea did pop up in some of his early works. Again, don't want to know why. Just enjoying the fact that it's there. Okay. Before I talk about this, recently, I've been watching a few videos of his online where he's made these guest lectures or these appearances, and he's talked about, being a writer and his stories, how he came up with his ideas, and what inspired him. And I have to say this, folks, you need to watch those videos. They are amazing. Because whether or not you might think he's a great writer or his works are literature, whatever, you can't deny the fact he knows what he's talking about, and it shows in those videos. I mean, you watch them, you realize even early on, wow, now this is a writer. This is a man who cares about what he's doing and he loves what he's doing. It's not just a paycheck to him. It's not just a fancy. He cares about it. And it's just so, to me, as a man who have aspirations or delusions of being a writer, I find it so inspirational to listen to a man and listen to basically a master of his craft. And speaking of videos, here's this one video I love. There's a conversation he had between Stephen King and George R. Martin. Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's long. I think it's like over an hour or close to an hour. But really, folks, you got to watch it. It is so amazing to see these two fantastic, these titans of their respective genres talking and joking and, discussing their inspirations and what they used to read as a kid and just, I can't argue enough. Again, Stephen King plus George R. Martin. Find a video, watch it. It'll blow your mind. I mean, it's just that good. Well, folks, I guess that's all for that. I mean, again, I cannot tell you how much I just love his work, how much I admire his work. I mean, people can say what they will about him and come up with all highfalutin ideas about literature. I don't care. He's an amazing writer. I love his work. And if you're a fan of his, like me, you understand it. But if you're someone who hasn't really read a lot of his work, but you're interested in it, I really suggest you read it. And if I may I recommend the following, as I think some of his just wonderful examples of his work. The Stand, It, The Shining, Carrie, Misery. Misery is also very good. As well as some of his short story collections like Nightmares and Dreamscapes and the Graveyard Shift or Night Shift. I'm blanking on the title right now, but anyway, his short story collections are wonderful because you get such a great variety of his work. You get to see so many ideas of his. So again, all those I highly recommend. Again, they're wonderful. Well, folks, that's everything I got to say. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to leave a comment, but please be respectful. And I'll see you next time.